this video, we'll walk through replacing the seals in the WhisperFlo and IntelliFlo pump provided in the Quick-Kit from Pentair. And for this video, we'll be using the WhisperFlo pump. If you're doing this work on a pump that's still installed in the system plumbing, make sure to close the suction and discharge gate valves to avoid flooding the equipment, and always follow manufacturer's safety and warning instructions. This Quick-Kit comes with a mechanical shaft seal, the diffuser O-ring, the pump lid O-ring, the seal plate gasket, 2 drain plug O-rings, and the impeller O-ring. The kit also comes with a small tube of silicone lubricant. Let's start by removing the pump lid. It may be on pretty tight, so if you need to, you can use a rubber hammer and gently tap the handles to help loosen it up. If you flip the lid over, you can see the lid O-ring. Let's go ahead and remove this O-ring since we'll be replacing it. Now let's separate the volute from the seal plate by removing the 6 9/16" bolts that secure them together. As we take these bolts out, notice the 2 middle bolts that have nuts keeping them in are longer than the other 4 bolts, so keep track of these by keeping them with the nuts. Okay, let's remove the volute from the seal plate by pulling them apart. And again, if the volute's hard to separate from the seal plate, you could use a rubber hammer to help remove it. Here we see the diffuser and the diffuser O-ring. Go ahead and remove this O-ring because we'll be replacing it with a new one from the kit. The diffuser is held on by 2 Allen head screws. We'll use the 3/32 Allen key to remove these screws. Now that the diffuser is off, it's a good idea to turn the impeller by hand to make sure it spins freely. To remove the impeller, we first need to remove the cover from the back of the motor so we can hold the shaft with a wrench while we loosen the impeller lock screw. There's 1 screw holding the cover in place. Use a flat blade screwdriver to remove this screw and the cover. The impeller lock screw is located in the middle of the impeller. It's important to remember that this is a left-hand threaded screw, which means you turn it clockwise to loosen and counterclockwise to tighten. Hold the motor shaft in the back of the motor with a 1/2" wrench while using a Phillips screwdriver to remove the impeller lock screw. The IntelliFlo pump and some WhisperFlo pumps may have the TEFC motor or totally enclosed fan cooled, which would have an Allen key socket in the end of the shaft accessible through the cover. The impeller threads onto the shaft of the motor, so we need to use the 1/2" wrench again to hold the shaft while we loosen the impeller by turning it counterclockwise. Here, our impeller could be loosened by hand, but you could also use a strap wrench if the impeller's on a little tighter. Now that the impeller's off, we can see the part of the seal that goes into the impeller. We can use a small flat blade screwdriver, gently working our way around the seal and pry this seal out of the impeller. Just be careful here not to damage the seat on the impeller that the seal fits into. The impeller has a lock screw washer on the other side. We'll go ahead and take this out with a small pick, or you could use a screwdriver, because we'll be replacing it with a new one from the kit as well. And here we have our seal plate gasket. Let's go ahead and take this gasket off as well. The other half of the shaft seal is pressed into the seal plate. So we'll need to remove the seal plate from the motor by taking out these 4 bolts that secure the seal plate to the motor flange. We'll use a 9/16" wrench to loosen and remove these bolts that secure the seal plate. Since the seal is pressed into the seal plate, we're going to use a 5/8 socket and a rubber hammer to drive the seal out of the seal plate. Before installing the new seal, we need to clean the seal seat and the seal plate thoroughly. Make sure to get out any old silicone that could prevent the seal from completely seating. When handling the seal, be careful not to touch the sealing surface with your hands, since oils and dirt on the skin can shorten the life of the seal or cause it not to seal properly. Now let's put a small bead of silicone adhesive under the flange of the seal. We're looking for about a 1/16 of an inch bead, evenly distributed with no gaps. The seal needs to be pressed into the seal plate. Here we use a 1-inch PVC coupling, but you could also use a socket that fits over the seal as well. The seal can be pressed in most of the way by hand, then with help of a rubber hammer, we make sure it's completely seated. And again, when pressing the seal into the seal plate, be careful not to get any dirt or grease or silicone on it. If you do touch the sealing portion of the seal or get dirt or silicone on it, clean it with alcohol and a lint-free cloth before installing the seal plate onto the motor. It's also important to remember that most silicones are going to need a 12 to 24-hour curing time before reassembling the pump. After the silicone's cured, we can reinstall the seal plate by sliding the shaft of the motor through the seal and then using the 4 9/16 bolts to secure the seal plate to the pump motor. It's also a good idea to add a little grease or anti-seize to the threads of these bolts. Tighten these bolts evenly, maybe in a crisscross pattern, to prevent distorting the seal plate. The torque specification for these bolts is 70 inch-pounds. To install the seal into the impeller, first thoroughly clean the seal seat of the impeller. Then spray a mixture of light-duty soap and water into the seat of the impeller to help the seal seat when we press it in. Place the seal into the seat of the impeller and using a socket, or like we do here, a 3/4 inch PVC coupling, press the seal into the seat. And like the seal plate portion, we want to keep contaminants off the sealing surface of the seal as well. We can also clean the seal with alcohol and a lint-free cloth if we do contaminate it with dirt or oil. With the new seal in place, let's reinstall the impeller. Hold the motor shaft with our 1/2 inch wrench and thread the impeller clockwise onto the shaft and tighten it hand tight. Insert the new impeller O-ring into the impeller and reinstall the impeller locking screw. Remember, this is a left-hand thread screw, so counterclockwise to tighten. Now let's go ahead and reinstall the cover on the back of the motor. Line the screw up with the threaded hole in the back of the motor, slide the cover on, and then tighten the screw clockwise. The diffuser has 4 locating tabs that line up with holes in the seal plate. Align these tabs into the holes, and then tighten the Allen screws to secure the diffuser. Now go ahead and install the diffuser O-ring along with the seal plate gasket. You may want to apply a small amount of the supplied silicone lubricant to the seal plate gasket to help hold it in place while reassembling. Now slide the volute in place and reattach it with the 6 bolts we removed earlier. Let's start with the 2 center bolts with nuts to help align the volute to the seal plate. Apply a small amount of grease or anti-seize to the threads of the bolts that screw directly into the seal plate. And tighten these bolts evenly in a side-to-side manner. The torque specification for these bolts is 110 inch-pounds. Reinstall the pump basket, making sure the opening goes to the front of the pump or to the intake side of the pump. Make sure the top of the volute and the sealing surface of the lid are clean. Lubricate the O-ring with the supplied silicone lubricant and reinstall the lid. The only thing left are the two drain plug O-rings that came in the kit. We have two drain plugs on the pump, one on the pressure side and one on the suction side. We'll go ahead and remove these drain plugs and replace the O-rings with the new ones. And that's it. The pump is now ready to go back into service.